The first part of these ideas may to some seem a little bit technical, but understand these are important for these times, for it is paramount in your day and age, on your planet, in your civilization, that you begin to get a grasp for how to create certain things, certain devices, certain ideas, to bring them into physiological manifestation so that you can take advantage of new ways of doing things, new technologies that are more aligned and more in accord with the elevation of the vibration, the acceleration of the energy taking place within your own consciousness now, and thus must reflect itself, this acceleration, outwardly in your physical reality through the extension of the imagination and the creation of new ways of doing things that are more harmonious and will allow you more capability of manifestation on all levels in your reality. Last year of your time, we began to talk about the idea of the creation of a particular device. It is a simple device, no moving parts. The idea is expressed in the shape of a cone, and we described and discussed the idea that the shape of the cone acts in many ways as an antenna to bring through the idea of etheric energy into physiological manifestation. Now, there are many different shapes that cones can take, and certainly you will find that, in general, many of the different parameters and shapes of cones, of the different proportions of cones, will have many different kinds of effects. But there are what you might call some idealized proportions that take advantage of the mathematical principles that exist in your physiological reality, that your physical reality is built upon in terms of energy patterns, in certain ratios and proportions, and if you will build many of your new devices to be in accordance with those proportions, then they will have the ability to align with, resonate with, harmonize with those energies, and bring through those energies in new and heretofore unexperienced ways, or at least ways that have not been experienced on your planet for quite some time. Much of this idea, these technologies, are not really new, but they are forgotten in your civilization, and we now will take time to help you remember some of these ideas and exactly why they work the way they do. But we urge you, as we give you this information, to go out and experiment, to actually literally build these things out of whatever material you so desire, using your imagination, using your intuition. Do not leave it in the realm of your imagination. Now is the time for action on your planet, more so than ever before. Now is the time for creating these ideas to be physical in your world so that you can see the physical effects that they can have. In building, therefore, these ideas of cone devices, of translation devices from the etheric to the physical, again, certain proportions shall, in a sense, resonate more powerfully than others. We have already told you about the idea of one particular proportion that is built upon what you call the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. All of this is easy for you to look up. But the idea being that when built in these proportions, you arrive at a cone whose apex angle is approximately, in your terms, 33.9 degrees. This will be similar to the idea of what you call and recognize in your remnant memory of the wizard's hat, the Tower of Babel, Jacob's ladder. All these references are to the idea of these shapes that act as antennas to bring energy down, as you say euphemistically, from heaven to earth. So build them. Experiment with them out of different materials, different sizes, in different locations on your planet, and see what effect you get. We would like now to share with you two other versions of the cone so that you can again allow yourself to understand that there are different resonances you can tap into and get different effects as you play with these concepts. We have given you now this one cone built on Fibonacci proportions with the apex angle of 33.9 degrees. The next shall be the idea of a cone whose height, in your terms, would be 33.3 units, whatever you wish the unit to be, and whose circular base will be in circumference, not diameter, in circumference, also 33.3 units. When you build a cone of this dimension, you will find that you tap into different levels of energy, certain kinds of earth energy very specifically. Some of you are already familiar with what we are about to say, but this will point out more strongly, perhaps, this principle to you. For if you build a cone 33 1/3 units high with a base of circumference 33 1/3 units, you will find that the apex angle will be 19.5 degrees. Some of you already understand this. So some of the work that has been done on your planet by other individuals, that what you would call your 19.5 degrees of latitude, north and south, will generally represent on most planets the location, the latitude of where you will observe most of the vorticular action, most of the upwelling action, represented by the idea in physical terms of cyclones, cyclonic movements, volcanoes on your planet, and so forth. In some of the gaseous planets, the idea of some of the swirling vorticular spots, hurricane vortices, cyclonic motions, also will be found at 19.5 degrees in your northern and southern hemispheres on these planets as well. This is representative of an energy vortex that is the result of the interaction interdimensionally of certain dynamics that are built upon the tetrahedral matrix. Also, the third idea of the cone, though it can be represented in many different ways, and so can all cones, they do not have to be round in that sense necessarily to work, but to some degree there is advantage to this. However, when necessary, they can be rendered into the idea of tetrahedral structures and pyramidal structures that are four-sided. But the idea specifically, to allow you to understand that this Fibonacci and phi ratio mathematics are very important and representative of the underlying template and matrix of your physical reality, we give you a final illustration that was understood in your culture long ago and exemplified and represented in a particular edifice that exists upon your planet now. These phi ratios, as we have again discussed, is the idea of the ratio of all natural things as they grow. One thing to another, one component of any device to another that is natural and grows will exhibit the idea of a certain mathematical ratio between all its components, and that ratio will be the phi ratio as you understand it in mathematics, which is 1 to 1.618. Again, briefly, for example, if you take the first part of your finger and consider that a unit of 1, the second part will be 1 to 1.618. The third part, in that sense, if you consider this one, the third part will be also 1.618 times bigger than the second. This is exhibited throughout your body, throughout all growing things, this ratio of 1 to 1.618. If you take a line standing up and you make that a unit of 1, and you make it perpendicular to a line at its base, that is 1.618 times bigger than the unit of 1, and you thus draw from the top of the standing line at the apex lines down to the edges of the line, the base, in that sense, you will have a triangle. This triangle, whether represented in conical form or pyramidal form, doesn't matter, is exactly the proportions of what you call your Great Pyramid at Giza. It is exactly that ratio, the phi ratio of height to base. And you will find thus that when you create such a triangle of 1 to 1.618, the corner angles will be exactly 51 degrees and the apex will be 78 degrees, as exactly exemplified within your Great Pyramid at what you call your Giza. This taps into directly etheric energy and transmits and translates it into physical reality for a variety of uses. It can be for the idea of the accessing of knowledge and information. It can, in many cases, literally, depending upon the material it is built out of, the location and the size, convert etheric energy literally into electric energy, magnetic energy. Sometimes even literal manifestation can occur. And this is why you remembered this shape when it came to the idea of the witch's hat, the wizard's hat. For it was the idea of manifestation that you were attempting to remember from long ago when you understood this technology but then forgot it. Also, it is the idea of the manifestation of why you have, not that you necessarily have to do this, but why you created the idea of what you call in your society the dunce cap. Why is it pointed in that way? To make you smarter. To say that you can bring more information in when you are standing under this shape. because it acts like an antenna. It acts like a lens. It is not, in that sense, for no reason that these things exist. But they are fragments of ancient memories in your culture. And now we talk about them with you in this day and time to bring this information back so that you can use these things. So we thank you for allowing us to bring you this refresher course, bring you up to date. And again, we urge you, go out and play with these things. Don't just leave it in your mind. Build them. Experiment with them. See what they do. For believe me, you will need them.